Hey everybody, welcome back to the Space News Pod. This is a show about SpaceX, NASA, and spaceflight. I'm your host, Will Walden, and on this episode, let's talk about Starship, let's talk about New Glenn, and let's talk about ULA as well for a national security space launch Phase 3 launch services program. Okay, that's a lot. Wow. Okay, so we know that SpaceX works with the Department of Defense, and we also know that Blue Origin hasn't launched New Glenn yet. So those are the two things we have to think about today. SpaceX works with the Department of Defense with Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and they also work with NASA and other firms around the world. Blue Origin sends people to space to do what some would call a carnival ride. You go up, you come back down. I think it's pretty cool, though, right now. The Blue Origin launcher that sends people to space, sent Captain Kirk to space. I mean, come on. You can't just be a hater on that. That's pretty cool. But New Glenn, their giant, massive rocket hasn't launched yet. Why did they get these contracts? How did they get this contract? And what does this mean for SpaceX in the overall scheme of things? This contract that's coming up, $5.6 billion over 5 years from fiscal year 2025 to 2029. They'll compete for at least 30 NSSL Lane 1 missions, which launch up to 2 years in advance. So let's talk about Blue Origin first. Blue Origin, who is founded by Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, is selected for the first time to launch national security satellites under the NSSL program. The only rocket that they have that can do this is New Glenn, which hasn't launched yet. They haven't even test fired the thing. Now, heavy lift reusable rocket is expected to attempt its first orbital flight later this year. Could this be possible? Could we see a New Glenn flight? I think it would be freaking awesome if we saw a New Glenn flight. Let me know down in the comments if you support Blue Origin and their gigantic, massive New Glenn rocket. It's not as big as Starship, mind you. I don't think it's as cool as Starship, but because it's all hidden and secret. We don't really know what's going on with New Glenn until Blue Origin releases something. It's not like SpaceX where you can drive down Highway 4, literally park on the side of the road, like across the road from it, take a couple pictures, or like just stand there and hang out and notice how huge this thing is. You can't do that with New Glenn. It's all in secret. But they received $5 million for initial capabilities assessment and nearly $18 million for early integration studies for New Glenn. Their initial capabilities assessment, what can it do? What can the Blue Origin rocket do? How much can it hold? Early integration studies for New Glenn, so they get $5 million and $18 million for both of those things. Just, it's kind of like a study, like, hey, early integration studies, like how does this thing work? How will it work for the Department of Defense? That's a bunch of money. And then Phase 3, this is how the program structure and lane details. I'm going to read this off to you because it's hard for me to remember all this stuff. It's divided into 2 lanes. Lane 1 is for less demanding low Earth orbit launches, and Lane 2 for heavy lift rockets capable of delivering payloads to 9 reference orbits. So SpaceX has Falcon Heavy. It's their heavy lift rocket. And then Jeff Bezos with New Glenn. That's their heavy lift rocket. Lane 1 contracts are confirmed for Blue Origin, SpaceX, and ULA, with no other launch providers meeting the criteria. Lane 2 providers will be selected later this year, with up to 3 contracts awarded for high-performance launch systems. So Lane 2, heavy lift rockets. SpaceX is more than likely going to get it with Falcon Heavy. Not quite Starship yet, because I don't know if the Department of Defense really is into. I know they're into Starship, but I don't know if they're ready for a Starship launch yet. And Joey Roulette, we're going to talk about that in a minute too. Joey Roulette had some information about this on X as well. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, the competition, Space Force aims to increase competition and drive down launch costs, which is a great thing for SpaceX, while maintaining assured access to space through redundant capabilities. Do it through ULA, do it through Blue Origin, do it through SpaceX. You have 3 different things you can launch with, 3 different launch providers, so it's going to be redundant. They can always get something to orbit or beyond. On-ramp opportunities will be available early year to allow new providers and systems to enter the competition. So if anybody else out there has a heavy lift rocket or rocket that can suffice what the Department of Defense needs, sure, throw your hat in the ring. Go for it. Every year to allow new providers to and systems to enter the competition. Potential new entrants for Lane 1 include Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, Firefly Aerospace, and they all have like medium lift rockets right now, or they're developing them. So the task order number 1 in phase 3, Lane 1, includes 7 launches for the Space Development Agency and 1 for National Reconnaissance Office. SpaceX and ULA, as incumbent phase 2 providers, will each receive $1.5 million. It's not that much money for these mega corporations. Only launch providers who have completed a successful orbital launch prior to the proposal due date can bid for task orders. So why aren't they using Starship right now? They don't really need to. They have Falcon Heavy. Starship isn't proven yet. Could they do it by then? Yeah, of course. And also, if they do it with Falcon Heavy this year, they could always bid for the Starship on next year's program. So Blue Origin looks like they have the confidence of the Department of Defense, which is great because we need competition. Not only does Blue Origin compete with Starship, but they're going to be competing with these giant contracts. With these giant contracts, SpaceX wants that money. So they're going to make Starship better, faster, bigger, cheaper. Also, ULA going to do the same thing. Actually, ULA is kind of old space, right? So ULA does things the old way, where they have a fixed way of doing things, and the rocket doesn't change until later. I mean, it will change later on. They will have other blocks for this rocket, but it's not clear exactly when that'll happen. Also, it's not really clear when Starship will make it to orbit and complete a full orbit, but I'm hoping it's by the end of this year. That would be great. I'm assuming that it will be by the end of this year. They'll complete a full orbit, and they'll possibly get some Starlinks into orbit while they're up there. And hopefully they'll catch a booster. I don't think IFT-5 is going to be the booster catch. I think IFT-6 or 7 is going to be the booster catch. I'm still optimistic. I'm not a pessimist about this thing. I'm just being realistic. So I think somebody left a comment on the last video that I was pessimistic about this stuff. I'm just being realistic, man. With the booster catch for Starship, it's just a little bit dangerous. And I'm optimistic about Starship. I want it to work very well. I want it to work perfectly, but sometimes you got to be realist. IFT-5, if everything looks great, go for it. But, it seems like the Department of Defense really likes Blue Origin in this case. And Space Force plans to select Lane 2 providers this fall, and they said the government intends to award up to 3 contracts for the NSSL Phase 3 Lane 2 launch service procurement. Lane 2 providers this fall. Could that be Starship? Possibly. That's a heavy lift one. So it's either going to be Falcon Heavy or Starship. If they can show that they can get to orbit, SpaceX has to make some sort of door, some sort of hatch for their satellites to come out, because I don't think they're ready for they're not ready for the clamshell quite yet. How when the clamshell with the nose of the Starship opening up like this, and then the satellites come out. I don't think they're ready for that yet. They could do a hatch of some sort. They did the Starlink hatch, which seemed to be okay, seemed to work all right, as far as we know. They said it was a successful test, so yes, it was successful. It was a little bit janky and a little, probably a couple seconds worth of closing the doors, a little janky, but it's their first try, and it's a Starship, so it's huge, it's massive. So the thing is, Starship may get this contract. Falcon Heavy, more than likely, that's reliable, it's proven. If SpaceX wants to go the proven route for this one, I would say just get the contract, take that money, because if you can demonstrate for the Department of Defense that you can do these things again and again with Falcon Heavy, of course, use that as a heavy lift rocket. It's not a super heavy lift rocket like Starship, and I don't think they're going to need a Starship for what the Department of Defense, U.S. Space Force needs for this launch. So why would you use the Starship if you don't need it? Let me know in the comments down below what you think they're going to do. Joey Roulette, I'm going to read you some of his tweets. So he just goes over Space Force awarded Blue Origin $5 million to conduct it, and then so he says, Joey says SpaceX pitched Starship, Blue Origin pitched New Glenn, and ULA pitched Vulcan. Then he goes on to say, I've asked SSC if Starship was admitted to Lane 1. They said yes, but I don't think that's correct. SpaceX got $1.5 million for a well-understood system, which obviously wouldn't be Starship. It would be Falcon. And it's highly doubtful Starship would be operational by December. So fully operational by December. He said it's highly doubtful. I think there's a possibility. It's possible SpaceX pitched Starship for Lane 1 independent of Falcon, because why not? And SSC only chose its Falcon bid, but that's not confirmed. I don't know, waiting SSC to clarify, but it certainly seems obvious Falcon is the one. And then Nick Proxima said, hi, Joey. Where exactly does it say what each vehicle was pitched? Just trying to phrase this the best of my ability. Thank you. And then Joey said Space Force confirmed to him, as did the companies except SpaceX. And then he said, I don't think it's Starship. So interesting that it's not Starship when New Glenn is launching too. So Joey's very reputable about this stuff. So it's kind of a little bit weird, but also you got to understand it. This is a business. Like, they don't do this to show off Starship. They do this to win contracts. They do this for billions of dollars. So if they have a rocket that can already do that, use the rocket that's already there. Use the Falcon Heavy for now until you get your Starship ready. And then when Starship's ready, start launching. It's not like they lost a race or anything like that. They're here to win money. And they're winning money with Falcon Heavy because they have a reliable rocket that already works, unlike Blue Origin, who has, their tourism rocket, which takes people up to space. They float back down. It's all good. It's fun. It's pretty cool. It's actually really cool. I like the rocket idea for Blue Origin. I would love to do it someday. So there you have it. That's what we know so far. Starship isn't going to be launching these as far as we know. If anything changes, I'll let you know. So leave a comment down below. And please hit the like button and the subscribe button. Because if you like SpaceX and NASA and spaceflight content, if you hit the like button and the subscribe button, and also if you leave a comment, YouTube will see that in the algorithm, and they'll start pushing you more Starship and SpaceX and NASA and spaceflight content, not just from me, but other creators out there that do similar things, and we can discuss different topics on different channels. I do it all the time. I subscribe to other channels. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know they existed, and that's really cool. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching today. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in the next one.